Hello there, it's your sophisticated sounding Brummy back here with another template idea for a risk and issue log. I've got this template in Excel. We've got this table, and when I tab across you can see it creates a new row. It gives me the next available ID that I've got, unique ID, which I can select. Whether it's a risk. I can assign the person who's raised that risk, give it a meaningful title. I can give it a meaningful description. Then I can do some impact analysis based on a probability impact assessment, and then give it an overall severity score. So if I give this a score, as far as my probability, it calculates accordingly. Set my status, is it in progress, give my mitigating actions, who the person assigned to it is, when was it erased, and then when I finally close this out, or have I accepted that risk or issue, i.e. the material impact is far lower than the actual effort required, or the material effort required to close this out. So these are all the columns that you will ever need to manage your risk and issues on any project that is usable. So if you want to know how to build it, stay tuned. Let's get this. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the tabs. So sheet 1, let's rename that to be my risk issue log. Let's create another sheet. This can be my parameters. So this is where all my drop downs are going to be, parameters, static data. That's where I'm going to contain that information. And then I'm going to create a final sheet, which will be where I handle my unique IDs. So against question, there's many ways to create unique IDs. Some are longer than others. This is the way that I've come up with it. So I'll walk you through that as well. So the first thing, let's go through what columns I'm going to need for my risk and issue log. Now I'm going to be controversial here. Number one, I'm combining the risk and issue log in the same register because I don't think you need to have them separate. And also any risk and issue log that has more than say 12 or 15 columns is an absolute waste of time. It just becomes too complicated and too huge to manage. Remember, this has got to help you manage your project, and what we're trying to do here is keep a log of those things that may have an impact on our project or materially impact it on cost, scope and schedule. Or we're trying to resolve those issues that have happened and impacted our project. We're not trying to do anything else other than encourage project managers and our project team to proactively identify these things and manage them. Yeah, and there's also, there are going to be situations where you'll agree not to resolve that, mitigate that risk or resolve that issue because it's an acceptable risk or an acceptable material impact to the project, and you'll just accept it and close it out. But it's keeping a record and a log of that. So the first thing I'm going to do is create this column. So I'm going to jump down to row 4 here, and first thing is going to be I want a unique ID. And it's always important when you're referring to your risks and issues on your project to have a unique ID with which to refer to them with. So the next thing is I want a type. So this is where I'll identify it as a risk or an issue. Then it's important to say who raised that risk or issue. It's not necessarily the person who owns it. Okay, so who raised that risk or that issue. So it's important to get their name in there. Then what a meaningful title of that risk. So give it a meaningful title what will mean something to you and your stakeholders. Then provide a description of the risk. What is it? or the issue? What's the impact? And then we want to understand what the impact is. Now, with risks, because they are something that could happen in the future, is that you want to understand, if it happens, what's the impact on your project, the material impact, and what is the likelihood or the probability that it's going to happen. So what we'll put in here is that we want to score it as far as what the impact is, which applies to both a risk or an issue. The only difference is that obviously an issue has actually happened. And then we want to know what the probability is. So for a risk, what's the probability? And you'll hear a lot of people refer to PI matrix or probability impact matrix, which we'll go through in a minute. And then based on these two scores, what's the overall severity of the risk or issue? If that severity is very low, then we don't need to worry about it and we manage it accordingly. But that's going to be a calculated column based on the impact and the probability. Then we want to know what the status is. So is it a new risk that's just been opened? Is it something that's in progress? Is it something that we've closed and we've either resolved it or mitigated it? Or is it something where we've accepted that risk or that material impact and we've agreed to close it? So what is the status? Then what are the mitigating or resolution actions that you are taking? And again, this should be something that's descriptive, succinct, and time specific, so you understand what action is being taken to either mitigate the risk or resolve the issue. And then who is responsible for closing out this risk or the issue? Who is the owner of that risk or issue? So you need to identify them. Then it's good to understand, well, when was the risk or issue raised? And when was that risk or issue closed? I think any more information on top of that, for most projects would be an absolute waste of time and wouldn't be manageable. So what I'm going to put on here as well is I'm going to put project name, so we know what project this belongs to. Just expand that, so we'll enter a name in here, and then up here I'll just put a title up here. So let's go risk and issue log in caps. I'm going to make that bigger. Let's make it bigger. I'm going to make it bold. Let's make it bigger than that as well, shall we? Let's make it much bigger, so I want it to stand out. Let's go to, there we go. Let's make that a bit bigger. Now what I'm not going to do is merge the cells, merge and center. I'm going to do another thing where I want this to be slightly over, is I'll do some indenting on that once I've settled on my format of the whole risk and issue log. So this is going to be an ID. This will be a data validation drop down, which we will create that in those choices in the parameters. The ID will be unique and we'll create that in the unique IDs, but again we'll use data validation in here. Raised by will just be the name. Title will be wrapped text and we'll align it to the top and align it to the left. Description will be wrapped text. I'm just going to do the whole row here is going to be aligned to the top. So again, description, I want that to be wrapped text. Impact is going to be a choice, data validation, through data validation. So will the probability and severity will be calculated. The status will create data validation for that, so that will be a drop down. And the mitigation again will be wrap text also, and we'll left align it like so. Then as far as the owner, that will be a person. The date raised will be a short date. I'm just going to central align that. And again, the date closed will also be a short date. Align that to the center as well. The type, will make sure that aligned centrally. Raised by, that's fine. I think these also, I will align these center as well, center aligned. Okay, so I think for now here, and let's call this my computer a project like so. That'll be the computer name. Right. So I think that's what I'm going to include. So let's get on to the parameters. So the first thing that we're going to do is let's create our probability impact matrix. So I'm going to have the probability score here. So 5 being high, 1 being low. So let me just put this down here. And then again, as far as my impact, so impact would be 1 being low, very low, and 5 being very high. So probability on the left, 1 being, you know, it's unlikely to happen, it's a very low probability, 5 being very high, impact being very low impact, material impact, 5 being very high. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a calculation here. So based on these two values, I want to get a severity score, and this is where this comes in the probability impact matrix. Is what I'm looking for here is I'm going to do equals my probability times my impact. Now what I want to be able to do is copy this formula across. So I want the column on my probability to stay the same, fix it like so with a dollar sign, and I want the row here on my impact score to stay the same. So I'm going to put a dollar sign in front of the row, and then if I hit return and then I copy that across, wonderful, it's calculated accordingly. If I copy that up, that's calculated accordingly, and then if I go across, and there you go, it's calculated it accordingly. So these here, I'm going to, in fact, I'm going to highlight this here as well. I'm going to fill it with sort of light grey, and I'm going to give it a border, and I'm going to make that border again. If I just right click on that format cell, I want to make that border slightly darker grey than what's there. So again, like so, and I'm going to make that slightly darker there as well so it stands out. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some conditional formatting on these cells because I want this to be color coded. So basically anything where the severity score is either equal to 5 or below 5, that's going to be green. Anything that's equal to 10 and below 10 and greater than 5 is going to be yellow, and amber, and then red accordingly. So if I just highlight these, so again, it's going to be a relative reference on my conditional formatting. So this cell here, which is DD3 here, I'm going to go conditional formatting, new rule, and I'm going to use a formula, and my formula is going to be equals if, and I'm going to use the AND function here as well. And remember, both statements have to be true for this AND statement to be true. So if I go AND if D3 is less than or equal to 5, yeah, and D3 is also greater than 0, then true. So do some formatting, otherwise false, don't do anything. And then as far as my formatting is concerned, I'm going to go font will be bold and my fill will be this green here. And I go OK, I do OK, and there you go. So it's now applied that formatting there. So again, still with everything selected, I'm going to go conditional formatting on the home ribbon and do new rule, again based on a formula, and this is going to be equals if, and I'm going to use the AND function again, if D3 is greater, move that out of the way, D3 is greater than 5, and if D3 is less than or equal to 10, then true. But if not, it's false, and therefore we don't do any formatting. We don't apply this formatting rule. If I go to my formatting again, I want it to fill yellow. The font will be bold, and I'll click OK, and OK again, and there you go. It's now picked those up. Again, with it all selected, I'm going to do the next one, the next level of severity, new rule. Again, use a formula, and again, it's going to be equals if, and again, I'm using the AND function, and so both statements have to be true. D3 is greater than 10. D3 is less than or equal to 16. Close that and then both of those are true. And we're going to do some formatting, apply that formatting rule, otherwise don't with a false. And again, go to format, bold, fill's going to be orange, and I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to click OK again, and then finally for the high severity, new rule with everything selected, I'm going to do equals if D3, again I want the AND function, so if in fact I don't need the AND function, because all I need to do is go if D3 is greater than 16, then true. And apply this formatting, which is going to be a fill of red. The font is going to be bold, and I'm going to make the font white also, and click OK, and do OK again. Right, and now we've got all the formatting. I'm going to add my gridding, and again, I don't like the format. I'm going to make that slightly lighter grey, so automatic, and again, just make this there, boom, boom, like so. Click OK. Right, so I'm now happy with that, and what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put, just for neatness, I'm going to put a thick border around that. I'm then going to insert some text here, so I want some labels against this so I know what it is. So I'm going to insert a text box like so, and this is going to be impact. I'm going to make sure it's bold, center and center. I don't want on the outline of the shape text box, I don't want an outline, I want it to be blank. So I'm going to do that like so. In fact, what I'm going to do as well is I'm just going to shape those there, make sure they're all centrally aligned. So I've got my impact there, and then I'm going to copy that text box and do Control V, paste it, and I am going to change that to probability. Let's see, like so. And again, I'm going to just select this and move it, and I'm going to turn it like so. And I'm just going to put it on the side there. Let's make this column a little bit smaller. Let's make that a bit smaller. Wonderful. Right. So that there is my probability impact matrix, like so. And that'll make it. And if I take this now, I should be able to take it, and I can copy that onto the front risk and issue log a little bit later on. Now the next thing I want to look at is my status. So now I want to create a table for my statuses. So state, got my caps lock on, status, and then a description of my status. So I'm going to have open. That's going to be a new open risk or issue. I'm then going to have in progress. This is where an owner has been assigned and it's been managed appropriately. Right, mitigation or the resolution is being managed by the owner. And then finally I've got closed. This is where it has been mitigated stroke resolved with no further action needed. Well, it's been mitigated and resolved successfully, should I say. Return, and then finally accepted is where you are in certain situations. You say, I understand the risk or the issue, and it has been accepted. My typing here. Accepted with no action required. I'll just double click that to expand it, double click that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do control anywhere here. I'm going to do Control T, bring that here, so Control T. It has headers, and click OK, and then I'm going to change my formatting here. So I'm going to go green because I like that. And as far as the table name's concerned, I'm going to call this table status, like so. So it's meaningful. Now the next one I'm going to do is for my impact scores. So I'm going to do impact, and I'm going to have a description to describe that impact, and I'm going to go from 0 down to 1 to 5. So 0, no impact. 1, it's going to be very low. 2, low. 3, medium. 4, high. 5, very high. And you can put some helpful descriptions around if it's cost, if it's schedule, or if it's scope as well, just to give some descriptors in there to give your team as much help to provide a consistent impact score here. Now once I've done that, I'm going to do Control T again, and it does have headers. Okay, and again I'm going to go to that format, and I'm going to change this to my table impact, so I know what it is, and hit return as far as table name's concerned. Next, I'm going to do probability. Again, description. What I'm going to do to save time is I'm going to take this here and do Control Copy, paste the values like so, and then I'm going to do Control T. Yes, it has headers. Let's go with that format, and I'm going to call this table probability in the name. And the next thing I am going to do here is I am going to do my types here. So is it a risk or an issue? Types. Now there are some people think you should put opportunities in here. Again, I've got to say from my personal experience on projects, especially when you're trying to get business people to operate in these frameworks, it's never used. It's only ever used during your budgeting period, where you are looking at your budgets for your project, or even your budgets for your department, where you're asked to look at opportunities to save money fundamentally. And as far as a risk and issue log, I have never seen it actively used on any project or program that I've worked on in the last 30 years. It's only ever used during your budgeting periods. So again, when someone talks about you've got to have an opportunity, you're just making it more complicated and confusing. So you're using this as a tool to prevent any material impact or resolve anything that's impacted your project materially as quickly as possible. And that's it. So with that in mind, risk description, I'm going to put something that might happen in the future. So again, let me just expand that out. So Control T, yes, it has headers, and then I'm going to choose that one, and I'm going to call this table types. So as I said, risk and issue are the only things that you really should be managing in your risk and issue logs. And so a risk is something that might happen in the future, which could have a material impact on your project. So you need to actively mitigate that, or assess it and decide there's an acceptable risk, or it's an issue that has happened, which has had a material impact on your project and you need to resolve it. Or again, you're willing to accept that material impact and no further action is needed. So those are the parameters here that we've done. So let's go back to our risk and issue log, and let's utilize these. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go view and take my grid lines off. And the first thing I'm going to do is take this here, and I am going to select it, highlight it, and do Control Copy. And then over here, I'm just going to paste this as a link picture, like so. I'm going to make this a little bit there. Let's make that center aligned like so. And there you go. So I've got my impact and my probability and severity, so I can understand what that is there. Now, one thing I want to do quickly is I need a title on this picture. So let me just do that. Probability and impact matrix, like so. And I'm going to make sure that is indented, like so. I'm going to make it bold. I'm going to make the text a dark grey, like so. And we now have a title, so we know what it is now. Brilliant. Now, let's do our drop down. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to work along these. So we've named all these appropriately. So on the table impact, etc. So we know what these tables are. So if I go into my risk log, so the first one is going to be my types. So I'm going to do a data validation, and again I'm going to utilize the indirect function. So I want to get the syntax right first of all of the table when I'm referencing the table. So I'm going to go equals, start typing table. So there's my status. I'm then going to open square bracket and then select status and then close square bracket and then drop that down. And as we can see, it's found it. So I'm going to copy that, control copy, press escape and then delete that formula there because I don't need it. I'm then going to go to my data ribbon, data validation, and I'm going to select the list. And in here, I'm going to type equals indirect function. And remember, the indirect function converts text to a range. In this instance, it points to our table. So open quotation mark, close quotation mark, and then close bracket, and then click OK. And now when I look at that, I can see the drop down there. Now again, I'm going to convert this into a table in a minute. I'm just getting all my things worked out before I do that. So the next thing that I want to look at is my impact here. So I want this to run off my table impact, and then open square bracket, there's the impact score, close square bracket, hit return. Yeah, it's pulled them all through. So again, I'm just going to copy that, control copy, escape, and then delete it. And again, on the data ribbon, data validation, list, and I'm going to do equals indirect, open quotation mark, paste in my reference, close that bracket, click OK, and there we go. I've got my impact and probability. Sorry, I've got my impact scores. Now let's do probability. Again, to get syntax right, table, probability, open bracket, select that field, close the square bracket, return. Yeah, it's picking them up okay. Just copy that syntax, control copy, escape, and then delete it from that cell. Again, on the data ribbon, data validation, list. And again, I'm using the indirect function, equals indirect, open bracket, open quotation marks, paste in that syntax, close quotation mark, close bracket, and click OK. So now I've got this in here. So I now want to do a formula. So let's do our severity calculation. So I'm just going to put some numbers in here. I'm just going to put that like so, and I'm going to leave that blank for a second. So I'm going to go equals. Now, if this probability is greater than 0, then I want it to be my probability times the impact. That's how I want it to score. Yeah, so I want the probability times the impact to give me my severity score. However, if the probability is blank, because we'll leave it blank for our issues, is the fact is that it has happened. So therefore it would be 5, as in because it's happened, times the impact, and then close. And if I then hit return, it's now calculating that appropriately. Now if I change this to 1, you can see the severity is now calculating accordingly. Now if you remember, we did a whole bunch of conditional formatting. So if I go onto the Home tab and copy that formatting like so, I then go to my risk and issue log and I paste that there. It then copies that conditional formatting. So I don't need any of the borders from this formatting, yeah, but I can copy the conditional formatting. So now if I change that to a 5, I get rid of the probability here and marks it as high severity. If I change this to a 3, it's now picking up that conditional formatting. Wonderful, that works. Now what I'm going to do also is I'm just going to do an if this does not equal blank, then do the calculation. Otherwise leave it blank, like so. I'm just going to add one bit of conditional formatting here. Yeah, one conditional piece of conditional formatting is I'm going to go into conditional formatting and do new rule formula and do, and if you look at this here, so it's H5, I do equals if H5 equals blank, then true, comma, false. So if it's blank, apply the fact there's no formatting. So I'm going to do OK there, like so. And then what I'm going to do is in this here, I'm going to again manage my rules. And this one here, I'm going to say stop if true and apply it. And that way then it just leaves it blank, like so. Now if I've got something in here, it should then calculate the severity. Perfect. Right, let me delete that. Let me delete those. So those are fine. Got our mitigation. So we've got our owner, which is going to be a person, date raised. So we've got no more data validation to do on here, except for the unique ID. So this is how I'm going to create my unique ID. I'm going to do a little cheat here. So first of all, I'm going to create a whole bunch of numbers here. So I want to create a whole set of unique IDs. And I want, when I do a data validation, I only want the ones that are not being used yet to be available for selection in here in this drop down. And this is how I'm going to do it. So first of all, I need to create my numbers. So I'm going to go equals, I'm going to use the sequence function, and I'm going to create, so in my rows all the way down, I'm going to do up to 10,000. Like so. And then I don't need to do the other arguments because I'm not doing columns. I'm not doing it from columns to the right. So I'm just going to go like so and hit return. And now what it's done, it's now created a sequence all the way to 10,000 from 1 to 10,000. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my format that I want. So I want it to have RI hyphen and then a set number. I want it to have those 5 digits. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to go equals, and I'm going to do RI hyphen, close that quotation mark, and then I'm going to do and And then I'm going to use the text function here. So I want to use a text function. So I'm going to go text, open bracket. The value is going to be the number, but I'm going to use the hash for the overspill. It's an overspill formula. So I select all of it. And then I'm going to do comma. And then the format is going to be the 5 digits that I want. So 1, so 0, 5 zeros, 2. And then close that quotation mark, and then I'm going to close that bracket, and I'm going to hit return. Wonderful. So now it's created the numbers for me, and then I'm going to hold the first one selected. I'm going to hold shift control and do the down arrow to select them all, and do control copy, and I'm going to go control home, and I'm going to paste values. So now I've got the values there up to 10,000. So I'm going to go unique. It'd help if I could spell IDs. And then I'm going to have another column here, which is going to be used here. And then what I'm going to do is this I don't need anymore, so I'm going to delete. And I'm going to do a formula here. So I want to know if this formula has been used. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to do a COUNTIF. If I find it in column A, then count it. And then if it's greater than 0, then I'm going to say, yes, it's been used. So I'm going to do equals count if the range is going to be column A. The value that I'm checking it against, or the criteria, is going to be here, A2. And I'm going to close bracket. Now at the moment, it's counting 0 because there's nothing there. And what I want to do is go if that is greater than 0, then return a yes. Otherwise, no, it hasn't been used, like so. Yeah. And then what I'm going to do is double click on that there, and it should copy all the way down to 10,000. Boom. Now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Control T. And I'm going to go, yes, it has headings. And I'm going to call this table unique IDs, like so. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I want to do a filter here, which is what I'm going to run my data validation off. Is I'm going to go available IDs, like so. And what I'll do is I'll just put that, give that style there, and I'm going to use the filter function. So I'm going to go equals filter, and the array that I'm going to include is this first piece of the table. So table unique IDs, open square bracket, and I'm going to use the unique IDs like so. And I'm going to include where it says table unique IDs used, close bracket, equals no, and hit return, like so. So now it's showing all of these based on the fact that there are no. As soon as I go to the risk log, and let's put RI-12341, like so, and I go to unique IDs, you'll notice now that's saying yes, and it's filtered it out. Brilliant. That's what we want to happen. So now I'm going to do data validation in here, and I'm going to point it to this spill, overspill. And the way that you use, and this is where you use the hash key. So if I go to here and I do data validation, and again I'm going to do a list, and I'm going to hit this up arrow here, and I'm going to go to my unique IDs, and I'm going to select the first cell here with it in, and I'm going to add the hash sign there also, and hit the down arrow. So I've now got my unique ID E2 with the hash, and click OK. And now I can see all my available IDs. So as soon as I select one of these, it will no longer be available. So I'm now happy with my formatting of this table. As far as this is concerned, it doesn't need to be available, so as invisible. So I'm going to right click on it and click hide that, so it's hidden. I'm going to change this. I'm going to add some formatting. So go to the home ribbon. I'm going to do that style here. I'm then going to take this, take that, but I want some double lines like this is here. So I'm going to go down, line style the double, and then just click there, like so. Boom. And then press escape to escape that mode. I'm then going to just put some information in here just to test it. And you can see here that this is pointing to the wrong table. If I go status here, that isn't. So what I want is I want that. I'm going to paste it there because that's what I want there. Yeah, impact's working, that's working, but this is wrong. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do equals table types, take types like so, close bracket. Yep, that works. I'm going to take that, control copy, escape, and then delete that. And let's go into here and amend that data validation. So if I go data validation, yeah, I've got status in there. So what I want is I want types, and then click OK. Let's check that. That's fine. So let's make that a risk. Raised by Janet Smith, project manager. And let's put this risk example description. If this risk happens in the future, then it will have a material impact on the project. The impact score again, so let's do probability. You'll notice the alignment here, I don't like that, so I'm just going to make sure my alignment here is at the top, like so. And again, it's about making sure that these all are aligned at the top. Yes, they are. And then as far as the status is concerned, it's opened. And again, these are the steps I'm taking to mitigate this risk before, again, 20th Feb 2024. So again, I've been time specific. Owner who's going to do this is Joe Bloggs, and the date that it was raised is the 2nd of Jan 2024, like so. Brilliant. So that all seems to work. I'm going to do Control T, and I'm going to turn this into a table. And again, let's go with let's go with that one. So that works. I'm going to do View. I'm going to get rid of the grid line so it stands out a little bit better. So that now seems to work here. I'm going to indent this, indent it slightly. I'm going to make this wider. That title, that title, that in the middle. That looks fine. And again, if I tab now on this table, if I look, see R1's no longer available, select the next available. Let's do an issue. Again, like so. Boom. So that seems to work fine. The only thing I'm a little bit concerned of is that the severity, there's a likelihood that the user might overwrite the severity. So we're going to do a little bit of a VBA trick here. So what I'm going to do is, so this is columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't need that. All I need to check is if the cell has a formula, then just jump to the right, move it to the right so the user can't overwrite this formula in the table. So I'm going to right click on the risk and issue log tab, view code, and in here, so on the sheet 1 risk and issue log, I'm going to do the drop down, select worksheet. It's defaulted to the selection change, so each time I change my cell selection, it will run this code. So stop, I'm going to put a comment, so I've put apostrophe there to write a comment. Stop user over writing the formula by moving them to next column. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to do an if statement. So if the target, so the target's been called here, which is our range. So our range variable, it's been declared here. Dot has formula equals true. Then I want to do something. So I'm going to do, so what I'm going to do is active sheet dot cells. I want it to stay on the actual row, but I'm going to get it to calculate a new column. So I want the existing column like so. I want to plus 1, to add 1 to move it to the right. And then close that down, and I'm going to activate that cell like so. And I'm going to do a return to end if to close out that end if statement. I do debug, compile, that seems to be fine. I'm going to save it. And it's saying here, it's warning me that my current file is not a macro enabled file, so I'm going to go yes. I want to continue that, and I'm going to save as a macro enabled. I'm going to save as, and I'm just going to use that same name and do save. It's now done. So now when I select that, Let's go and debug. It does help if you spell activate correctly. There you go. Play. Close and do save. Again, there you go. Now it works. As I say, my typing can be atrocious sometimes. Now, there's a quick way of doing a risk and issue log. In the next video, I'll show you how to visualize the data in your risk and issue log. But hopefully that's been useful. I think the key takeaway from this is simple is best. And whilst I've shown you some complex things like Visual Basic and some overspills, it means from a user perspective, when you're asking your users to interact this and manage their risks and issues within your risk and issue framework, is that it's simple for them to manage and keep this as up to date as possible and to proactively manage these things. So simple is best for the user. So there's the key phrase, simple is best. Make it as easy as possible for your team members to manage their risks and issues, which means keep it down to a low number of columns and try and keep it as the complexity of that process as simple as possible. I hope you found this video useful. As I say, in the next video, I will look at showing you how to visualize the data within your risk and issue log for project reporting. I look forward to seeing you in the next exercise. Bye-bye now.